Discover the unexpected words of a single dad on a blind date that transformed hearts forever. Mark sat in the diner, the metallic clatter of silverware ringing in his ears, a stark contrast to the deafening silence of his thoughts. Each creak of the booth felt like judgment, pressing down on his already heavy heart. Ellie, his 10-year-old spark of joy, was at home asleep, probably dreaming up wild adventures they could embark on together. The thought brought a fleeting smile that was quickly clouded by the anxiety gnawing at him as he awaited Sarah, the corporate marketing executive that his well-meaning friends had set him up with. What did he have in common with someone who lived in a world of boardrooms and presentations? As Sarah walked in, the autumn chill seeming to hang around her like an unwanted guest, Mark couldn't help but feel a wave of apprehension wash over him. He put on his best brave face, determined to keep the evening light-hearted for Ellie's sake, and his own. He began to share stories of his daughter, the mischief she got into at school, her passion for building massive Lego sculptures, her dream of being an astronaut. But as he spoke, he felt the walls of his insecurities rise. What would Sarah think of a mechanic from a small town raising a spirited child alone? The tension in his chest tightened as small talk shifted to deeper subjects. It dawned on him that sharing his life meant exposing his vulnerabilities. He hesitated, the words lodged in his throat as he recalled the burden of his father's grudge and unspoken animosity that had festered and now held him captive. The truth spilled out, raw and unfiltered, as he confessed to unraveling emotional ties that had long kept him anchored in bitterness. He noticed the flicker of understanding in Sarah's eyes, a subtle cue that suggested she too understood the weight of internal struggles. But just as their connection began to spark with warmth, a misunderstanding caught him off guard. Was she pitying him? A wave of embarrassment rolled through him. No. That wasn't the genuineness he sought. Fighting back frustration, Mark could feel his lungs constrict. Loyalty, integrity, they meant everything. Yet here he was, standing precariously on the edge of vulnerability, questioning whether he should retreat into his emotional fortress or take a leap of faith. Before he could find clarity, an urgent voice echoed in his mind, "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As the night wore on and the moment stretched into a painful silence, he felt the ache of potential loss throb in his heart. The laughter bubbling from the corner table that Ellie would have loved seemed like a cruel reminder of his responsibilities. Would taking these sips of honesty finally prove worth it, or would it all come crashing down like his hopes too often had? As opportunities flickered endlessly in his mind, the prospect of finding what his soul sought or losing everything teetered before him. Mark stood, frozen in thought, as Sarah's phone buzzed, illuminating her anxious expression and pulling her attention away. There, in the sharpness of the night, everything felt suspended. Could he muster the courage to step forward? Or would he let the moment slip away, tangled in the misunderstandings of the past? With uncertainty holding his breath captive, the tension mounted, threatening to explode into a decision that could reshape their lives forever. Mark took a deep breath, centering himself amidst the whirlwind of emotions. In that moment, he realized that the true challenge wasn't merely the date or the fear of judgment from Sarah. No, it was the battle against his own self-perception. He was allowing the past's echoes to overshadow his present, each echo urging him to retreat into the comfort of silence where vulnerability seemed threatening. As he watched Sarah respond to her phone, Mark seized the fleeting opening in the conversation. He decided to delve deeper into his thoughts. "You know," he began, his voice firmer than he felt, "raising Ellie alone has taught me so much about resilience, about stepping out of my comfort zone." The warmth of his conviction sank into the quiet atmosphere between them. Sarah's gaze returned to him, curiosity mingling with acknowledgement. "What is something you've learned that surprised you?" she asked, leaning in slightly. Her question struck a chord. He fumbled for words at first, but soon they began to spill forth. I always thought I needed to have everything figured out, especially after the divorce. But what's clearer now is that it's okay not to have all the answers. It's about the journey, the moments like when Ellie finished her first Lego project. That look on her face. Priceless. It's about celebrating little victories, not just the big ones. He felt lighter as he spoke, the sincerity of his emotions serving as a strange comfort. The warmth in Sarah's eyes grew, transforming whatever hesitation he felt into sparks of connection. They seemed to dissolve the barriers he had silently erected. That's really profound, Mark. I've been so focused on deliverables and deadlines that I forget to appreciate the small triumphs, especially over the past couple years. Her admission resonated deeply with Mark. It was astonishing how their lives, his quiet struggles in the heart of a small town and her bustling corporate life, shared an underlying resonance. The silence that followed felt different. It was charged and hopeful rather than tense. But just when Mark began to cash in on that hope, uncertainty clawed back into his thoughts. Was he pushing too hard, laying his soul bare too soon? The memories of his broken relationship and the legacy of disdain from his father crept back. Could he truly trust someone again? Mark's internal debate escalated as Sarah continued. I guess we both have our struggles, don't we? She mused, vulnerability now apparent in her tone. It's just so easy to forget amidst all the distractions. He hesitated, weighing his next words like precious stones. If he was going to take this leap, it should be without reservation. Maybe it's time we both stop hiding behind our doubts. Everyone has a story. It seems we just need someone to listen. The frankness in his voice surprised him, but it was a liberating feeling, one he hadn't experienced in years. Their surroundings began to fade, the clamor of the diner dulled. Instead, the connection they decultivated became a singular focus. It was promising yet terrifying. This might be the first step toward healing his festering insecurities, or it could expose him to the risk of further heartache. Would you consider not just sharing our stories tonight but pursuing a better understanding? Sarah ventured, her vulnerability alive in her pitch. Mark felt his heart thud audibly in his chest. The stakes had risen. Being honest could lead to something remarkable, perhaps a friendship, potentially more. But the nagging fear of rejection loomed. Let's take the chance, he breathed, as much to himself as to Sarah. In that moment of resolution, Mark realized he wasn't just carving out space for potential love, he was going against years of ingrained fear. This was deeper than a blind date. He was, for the first time in a long while, confronting who he truly was. The question of whether he could fully embrace this journey loomed over him as they smiled in cautious optimism, a smile that brought promise but also the weight of risks unimagined. Would Sarah become a companion on this path of self-discovery, or just another fleeting encounter in the tapestry of his life? Tomorrow's going to require a lot of bravery, he thought, seeking to armor himself with fortitude. And as the conversation shifted into lighter territories, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that this night might very well change everything. As the evening progressed, laughter filled the small diner, but Mark's mind remained a restless storm. Each shared joke and light-hearted anecdote from Sarah danced around the deeper currents they had both touched on earlier. Beneath the easy smiles and playful banter, Mark could feel the impending weight of honesty pressing down on him once more. How could he continue this conversation when the past, with all its burdens, loomed heavily in the corner of his mind? Sarah was animated, a vibrant energy that seemed to illuminate the room. Yet, as he watched her, a more profound awareness emerged within him. This connection, fragile yet exhilarating, was drawing him closer to acknowledging his true self, a self often hidden behind layers of doubt and fear. He glanced at her, the way she effortlessly engaged with the world around her, and thought about how long it had been since he had felt genuine excitement. Would she ever feel the sheer weight of his past, the gut-wrenching despair that came with raising a child alone? Or had he finally found someone who could see beyond his mistakes? I used to think being a role model for Ellie meant being perfect, Mark said suddenly, catching Sarah off guard. Her eyebrows lifted in curiosity. I thought I needed to control everything, ensure she had the childhood I never did. But I'm beginning to realize there's strength in admitting when you don't have it all figured out. Sarah nodded thoughtfully, her expression showing a blend of empathy and surprise. That's so honest, Mark. I've always thought taking risks was about being brave and fearless. But maybe it's more about vulnerability, showing up when it's easier to hide. As they exchanged words, Mark felt the tendrils of doubt recede slightly. He had an unexpected ally in Sarah, someone who was not only willing to hear his story but also eager to share her own battles. The shadows of his past were daunting, yet he found the courage to confront them. What's one thing you've been afraid to share? He blurted before second-guessing his intrusion. Her gaze dropped for a moment, and Mark could almost see her mind racing. Honestly? It's easy to present a facade in my line of work. Everyone expects a certain performance from you, especially when you lead teams. But I often feel like I'm just playing dress-up, hiding the parts of me that carry weight. It struck him how similar their struggles were: fear of judgment, the craving to be seen wholly, the internal battles that no one else seemed to understand. They were both performers in their own way, desperate for acceptance while also craving authenticity. Imagine if we could help each other break down those facades. The thought slipped from Mark's lips, attracting Sarah's intrigued gaze once more. Her attention now fixed, it felt exhilarating, as if he had unleashed a shared pact of sorts. Maybe we can be the support we both need, she suggested, her voice steady. The idea was nothing short of radical for Mark. For years, he had cloistered his emotions, convinced they were a sign of weakness. To even consider weaving his life with another person's was terrifying. Deep down, however, something stirred the realization that this encounter might not end at this table. Maybe it could lead to a friendship where they could both grow through their vulnerabilities. But the dilemma loomed: could he truly bear the weight of sharing his struggles without falling apart? Could he grant Sarah the chance to see him as he was, imperfections and all, without the fear of ruining everything? No more hiding behind fears, he thought, grappling with his internal battleground. As the conversation moved toward light-hearted stories about strange coworkers and embarrassing moments, he knew a pivotal decision awaited him. Mark took a sip of water, steeling himself for the next words. The stakes were rising, and with them came the realization: he stood at the precipice of something transformative. Could we talk about our fears next? He asked, voice steady, the challenge echoing in his mind. The spark of fear that ignited at his words softened with possibility. What lay ahead could either fortify this fledgling connection or shatter it. Let us do it, Sarah replied, her smile unwavering, as if she too sensed they were on the brink of uncovering something deeper. And so they settled into a comfortable silence, one brimming with anticipation, the air charged with the promise of revelations yet to come. As Mark mentally prepared to delve deeper, he couldn't ignore the feeling that this conversation could mark a turning point, not just for their night, but for everything that followed. Would they emerge together on the other side of their fears, or would the shadows once again cloud their potential? Mark could feel the tension in the air, thickening like a fog descended upon their table. The laughter outside the diner faded into the background as he shifted his focus, steeling himself for a question that felt monumental. He'd always traversed the tightrope of vulnerability with caution, but tonight he sensed an opportunity to plunge into it headfirst. Their conversation had unfolded naturally, like a dance drawing them closer. But would the exposure to their fears lead to deeper understanding or leave them both feeling vulnerable and alone? What's your biggest fear? Mark ventured, the words slipping into the air with a weight that pressed on him. His heart raced. Was he prepared to hear the answer? Was he ready to plumb his own depths? Sarah regarded him, her brow furrowed in thought. The moment hung suspended, forcing both to confront the potential chasm that lay ahead. Here was an opportunity to drop the facade, yet both had so much to lose. I'm afraid of being vulnerable, she admitted at last, the honesty clear in her voice. I've spent so long honing an image of confidence and strength, it's terrifying to think that my fragility could shatter it all. I fear that if I reveal my true self, I'll be seen as inadequate. There was a palpable shift in the atmosphere. Mark's eyes widened as he absorbed her words. He realized just how much she had, too, kept hidden beneath layers. Her confession resonated deeply, mirroring his own struggles as a father, his desire to shield Ellie from hurt, to project an image of unwavering strength for her sake. Vulnerability, which he had long viewed as a weakness, began to morph in his mind into something else entirely, an avenue for growth and connection. But what if the truth is what truly connects us, he ventured, emboldened by her raw honesty. I always thought strength meant protection, but now I'm starting to see the value in authenticity. It are actual struggles that make us relatable. Exactly like real strength means admitting those fears, right? She leaned in, eyes bright with understanding. The flicker of recognition in her gaze gave Mark the courage to peel back the layers of his own guarded heart. I fear I'm failing, Ellie, he revealed, each word a stepping stone across the chasm of vulnerability. Every day I wake up terrified that I'm messing it all up, that every choice I make could shape her life in ways I can't even fathom. It's overwhelming. Sarah's reaction was immediate, her empathy palpable. That's a heavy burden to carry, she remarked softly, the gravity of his admission sinking in. So, what do you do with that fear? Mark hesitated, suddenly aware that the moment had shifted entirely. The banalities of life seemed starkly irrelevant compared to the profound connection they were cultivating. He felt like he was teetering on the edge of something important, where real growth lay. I guess I'm learning to accept it, he said, his voice steadying. I'm realizing that I can't control everything. Maybe being a good father means demonstrating resilience in the face of my own fears. I want Ellie to see it's okay to be afraid, but we push through anyway. That's powerful, Sarah replied, admiration flickering in her eyes. Helping her learn that vulnerability isn't a shortcoming, but part of being human. It's brave. The conversation continued, ebbing and flowing between their fears and aspirations, slowly weaving a tapestry of shared experiences. Mark realized he was shedding the layers of doubt that had enveloped him for so long. Each revelation felt like a step towards reclaiming his own identity, rather than the simple roles fate had thrust upon him. As they exchanged stories, Mark felt a burgeoning sense of clarity within himself. With every word spoken, he edged closer to confronting the deeper issues that had long plagued him. The intimacy he had long feared came not from weakness, but from strength and connection. Yet, with this newfound clarity came a sharp reminder: facing fears was only the first step. The real tests loomed ahead, lurking just beyond the edge of vulnerability. What would happen when they moved from words to action? How would he deal with the insecurities that were sure to surface when faced with real-life challenges alongside Sarah? And could he truly allow himself to grow alongside her, trusting that such a bond could withstand the inevitable trials that awaited them? The anticipation crackled, leaving Mark breathless with both excitement and apprehension. Could they forge something authentic together, or were they fated to retreat back into the shadows of their uncertainties? The stakes felt painfully high, the moment rife with the potential for something transformative. Mark left the diner with a mix of exhilaration and trepidation, feeling the weight of their conversation settle into his bones. The crisp night air nipped at his cheeks as he walked, its coolness sharpening his thoughts. For the first time in years, he felt alive, his heart thumped a steady rhythm of hope and reflection. But the doubts began to swirl as he took each step toward his car. What now? That question loomed larger than the tangible stars glittering against the inky sky. The revelations exchanged with Sarah had cracked open doors he had long kept bolted. Now they swung on rusted hinges, inviting him to explore the depths within. He could feel the tremor of possibility, but he also sensed the shadow of fear lurking just behind it, whispering caution into his ear. In the safety of his car's interior, he closed his eyes, breathing deeply, attempting to distill the intensity of the evening. That shared vulnerability had transformed from a moment of fear into a catalyst for personal reevaluation. He knew he needed to confront his past decisions as a father, and more importantly, his unrelenting need for control. The image of himself a protective figure, battling life's storms alone was beginning to crack. Yet a resistance gnawed inside him. It felt easier to put on the mask of steadfastness, to shield himself in an illusion of perfection for Ellie's sake. Wasn't he that what being a good father meant, projecting strength, keeping fears at bay? But the memory of Sarah's eyes, filled with understanding and acceptance, cut through his doubts. Could he share his own flaws with Ellie? Teach her that real strength was not about iron walls but about letting those walls down, even when vulnerability felt like stepping off a cliff? These questions lingered uncomfortably, echoing in the quiet of the car. Arriving home, the late-night stillness wrapped around him like a blanket. Mark turned on a single lamp, its warm glow illuminating the living room where Ellie's toys were a testament to both joy and chaos. Ghosts of self-doubt lined the walls. Mark inhaled, reminding himself that he was committed to embracing the discomfort. Ellie's small laughter wafted from the back room, sending a spark of warmth through him. Unclenching his fists, he walked toward her, watching as she colored fiercely, her tongue sticking out in concentration. "Hey, kiddo," he said softly, settling beside her. "What are you working on?" She looked up, eyes bright and excited. "It's a secret." Mark chuckled. "Okay, I won't spoil it. But can I share a secret of my own?" Ellie's brow furrowed in curiosity as she considered his question, her small hand pausing in its movements. "I've been thinking I'm a little scared sometimes," he started, a twinge of vulnerability tracing through his voice. "Scared that I'm not doing enough for you, that I might not always have the right answers." She regarded him, her chubby cheeks lifting in a smile. "But you always figure it out, Dad. You're just a human, like me." He couldn't help but smile back, the simplicity and truth of her words weighing heavy, yet reassuring. "Yeah, maybe. But I think I need to be okay with being scared. It doesn't mean I can't be brave too." Ellie's expression shifted, her brow furrowing in thought as she picked up her crayon again, a look of profound concentration etched on her young face, reflecting a wisdom beyond her years. "I think it's okay to be scared, Daddy. Maybe it means you're learning too." The gravity in her response resonated deeply with him. They sat together in silence, the air thick with newfound understanding and connection. Mark brushed a hand through his hair, mind racing. Could this be the beginning of a shared journey toward understanding vulnerability between them? As he articulated his fears to Ellie, he realized it wasn't just about his fears anymore, it was about teaching her that bravery could coexist with uncertainty, that sharing oneself could foster connection and growth. And just as this realization began to take root, the town clock chimed midnight, a sound reverberating in the back of his mind. Was he ready to dig deeper, to confront the larger fears that had long lived in the shadows? The path ahead felt treacherous yet promising. That same anticipation coursed through him, but now it bore the weight of something more profound, a chance to forge a bond with Ellie built on truth, honesty, and mutual discovery. As he leaned closer to Ellie, ready to reveal more of his heart, including his hopes, fears, and aspiration for a better connection, he recognized that the hardest part was just beginning. What would he uncover in himself when he dared to open up fully? And could he stand on the edge of vulnerability without faltering, or would the tremors of his past pull him back into the shadows? The soft scents of crayons and paper enveloped them as Mark sank deeper into the moment, intent on bridging the chasm between vulnerability and connection he'd long avoided. While Ellie continued her art, he studied her, seeing hints of his own uncertainty mirrored in her youthful expressions. Their silent bond felt both powerful and fragile, as if each shared secret built a bridge yet exposed a chasm underneath. His thoughts turned inward, spiraling through doubts and hopes. He had kept Ellie sheltered under the belief that he was the unwavering protector, yet the cracks in that facade were unearthing a fundamental truth. Did she really need a father immune to fear? Or was it more vital that he embodied the duality of strength and vulnerability? "Kiddo," he said, breaking the silence that hung between them like a delicate thread, "can I share something else?" He hesitated, heart pounding as he gauged her reaction. "Sometimes when I'm at work I worry that I'm not doing enough, like I might miss out on something important. Like missing time with you. Ellie paused, her small forehead creasing with deep thought. But you come home, and you're with me. Even if you're away, I know you're there. The simplicity of her response squeezed his heart, it sharpened the realization that presence mattered far more than perfection. In that moment, doubt receded slightly, replaced by a gentle wave of conviction. If he allowed himself to be honest about his feelings, his fears of inadequacy, perhaps that sincerity would plant the seeds of courage in Ellie, cultivating her emotional intelligence as she grew. I guess you're right, Mark replied, smiling through his uncertainty. I just want to make sure you feel safe and happy, you know. It's okay to be both scared and brave. Her eyes lit up again, a reflection of her unyielding belief in him, an innocence that filled the room with warmth. Then we can be scared together. It's like a team. Team Dad and Ellie. The nickname resonated with him, a token of their newly forged understanding. Mark realized the potential for shared experiences was merely a step away from this moment. What if he actively sought opportunities to challenge his fears in front of her? It could transform them, weaving a tapestry of lessons learned through their expeditions into vulnerability. As they finished their coloring session, Mark's mind raced with ideas. He could introduce Ellie to new experiences beyond the confines of their routine swimming lessons, hiking along the rugged trails nearby, or even trying a new skill together. Each would be a canvas for both of them, where shared anxiety could blossom into revelation, just as their exchanges had tonight. Let us do something together this weekend, he proposed, excitement bubbling to the surface. Just us two, what do you think? A secret adventure. She squealed, clapping her hands. Mark laughed, the sound echoing in the dimly lit room, the absurdity and joy intertwining in the air. But deep down, he understood this newfound intention was about more than just an adventure, it was about embracing the unknown, allowing themselves to be unpolished. Thinking of how much they had begun to share bathed Mark in warmth, but another thought taunted him. Would his attempts allow him to reveal further layers of his past? Would he confront the shadows lurking behind his desire to maintain control? Could he adequately discuss the events that led him to shield Ellie from his struggles? As the clock ticked for yet another twisting moment in their journey, Mark felt an urgency ignite within. These next steps required courage well beyond the surface of everyday exchanges. He needed to address the demons from his past if he truly wanted to foster this bond. And that realization, while daunting, set his heart racing with the prospect of finally owning his story, its messiness, its challenges. He glanced at Ellie, lost in her imaginative world. What if that was the ultimate path, exploration laced with honesty, no matter the consequences? The stakes were high, but the potential rewards felt infinite. Mark took a deep breath, preparing to embark on this uncharted territory. What awaited him in this exploration demanded attention, a confrontation not just with his past but also with the possibilities of vulnerability that lay ahead. Would he have the fortitude to face what he had hidden and finally strip away the layers he so carefully crafted? The journey had only just begun, and the tension wrapped around him like a tightly wound coil, ready to spring into action. Morning light filtered through the kitchen window as Mark prepared breakfast, the aroma of pancakes mingling with the distant sounds of the neighborhood awakening. Ellie buzzed around the table, her chatter seamlessly weaving between her excitement for their adventure and the colorful world she dreamed up. Once mere small talk between him and his daughter tethered to routines and responsibilities now felt charged with the thrill of new experiences. He flipped the last pancake, thoughts racing ahead to the plans they'd made. Today, he would take the first steps into that vulnerable territory, a terrain rife with uncertainties he'd long safeguarded. Are you ready for our secret adventure? He asked, a tentative smile tugging at his lips. Ellie nodded vigorously, her eyes sparkling. Can we see the river? I want to catch fish. Fish? Well, we can try, but I'm not sure how good I am at angling, Mark admitted, feeling a pang of worry twinge in his stomach. I may have unrealistic expectations set by cartoons. Let us just do it together. She replied, splashing him with contagious enthusiasm. The notion became clearer: this outing was a lifeline connecting his evolving role as a father to his unrefined self and the lessons buried within his experience. They arrived at the river, the water gleaming under the afternoon sun, casting sparkles like scattered diamonds. Mark observed Ellie leaping ahead, full of unbridled joy. While their laughter echoed against the banks, he felt the weight of his past pressing against him, his need to project competence even in the face of his own insecurity. How had he let fear hijack so many opportunities to simply be present? Feeling the weight of his thoughts interrupt the moment, he shook his head, forcing focus. As they set up to fish, he reminded himself that every stumble could foster growth. He had once seen vulnerability as a pitfall. Perhaps, framed in a new light, it could become a catalyst for connection. What if he shared his fears with Ellie during this adventure? "Ellie," he began, trying to merge apprehension with genuine intent, "you know, there is something else I want to be honest about." She put a finger to her lips, her teeth biting the edge of her sweater. "Are we going to catch fish or are we going to talk?" "Both. But first, I need you to understand something." He took a deep breath. "There are times when I'm scared, too, like when I feel I'm not doing enough for you. It makes me think, what if something goes wrong?" She looked at him with wide eyes, contemplating his admission. "But Daddy, when you try and when you're here, that's already doing a lot." There was a wisdom in her voice, a surprising depth that struck at the core of his self-doubt. "Exactly. But today, I want to face my fear of being bad at fishing," he chuckled, lightening the atmosphere. "Let us be brave together. Team Dad and Ellie on the case." She shouted, bouncing on her heels. The familiarity of that team mantra fortified him. They settled at the riverbank, casting lines into the water. Moments elapsed, punctuated by Ellie's laughter and Mark's clumsy attempts to reel in fish. He felt a shift within, an acceptance of their shared missteps as part of the journey instead of liabilities. Then, the urgency of habit crept back in. What deeper part of his past was he still hiding from her? He felt a flicker of resolve forming within him, not only about fishing techniques but also about discussing the things he de-skirted, things that could shape their joint venture into raw authenticity. The splashing of the water was suddenly a reminder that he wouldn't always know how to swim through these emotions. But the risk of openness was calling him forward. Mark looked at Ellie, her focus intent on the bobber dancing on the surface. "You know, sometimes families have things in their past they don't talk about. Not because they're bad, but just because they're hard." "What do you mean?" she asked, glancing up with curiosity. He hesitated as the ripples broke between them, unsure of how these words would land. What if this moment could unlock the door to a more profound connection, bridging his fears with her trust in him? His heart raced. The time had come to face the shadows he avoided, to let Ellie into the truth of him. Would their adventure today lead to deeper revelations than fishing could ever provide? The current of their journey surged with possibility, and in that charged moment, he knew the conversation was about to shift from fishing to something far more significant. The leap into vulnerability awaited him, and he could feel the pull of it, like a tide that couldn't be resisted. Mark took a deep breath, the weight of his next words pressing heavily against his chest. Ellie's eager gaze was both comforting and intimidating. He wanted to shield her from the darker undercurrents of his past, yet something primal urged him to share. Could vulnerability breed trust instead of creating distance? "I've made mistakes, Ellie. Big ones," he finally said, swallowing hard. The sun caught in her hair as she tilted her head, her expression transforming to one of concern rather than the playfulness he had expected. "Sometimes, I didn't face my fears like when I left your mom. That was hard for both of us." "You felt scared?" Ellie asked, her voice small. "Yes," he replied, feeling an unanticipated choke in his throat. "Scared I was letting you down. Scared I wouldn't be a good dad without her. I thought I could manage it alone." The ripples in the water mirrored the turbulence inside him, yet it was liberating to audibly claim those thoughts. Speaking the truth felt like shedding an old skin. Ellie remained quiet, her small brow furrowed as thoughts churned behind her wide eyes. Mark could sense the gears turning, she was processing what he had revealed. Instead of feeling more frightened, he found strength in that unease. "But you're here now, Daddy," she said, brightening. "And you're trying, right?" "We're trying." The confidence in her words washed over him like the river's gentle flow, filling him with a warmth he hadn't anticipated. "Yes, we are. Together. And it's okay to be scared sometimes, as long as we keep trying to face it." Mark felt an unfamiliar pride surging through him. They weren't perfect, he didn't need to be. The connection he feared would fracture actually deepened with every shared fragment of honesty. It was as if the actual river beneath them echoed their growing bond, ebbing and flowing toward a shared truth. "This is fun, too," Ellie chirped, plunging her hands into the chilly water, splattering droplets that sent a shiver up his spine. "Just look at us. Team Dad and Ellie, not catching fish." Another wave of laughter broke the tension, but beneath the surface, Mark felt an undeniable shift. This wasn't just a day at the river. It was a step into the complexities of openness, peeling back layers he had kept hidden for too long. Fueled by Ellie's innocence, he unwittingly agreed to embark on this journey not only as a father but also as a flawed but striving human being. As they sat on the edge of the riverbank, a thought crept into Mark's mind: where would they go from here? Could they turn this moment of vulnerability into a family tradition, a way to process life and the hard things together? A ripple of excitement surged through him. The sound of a tug on his line broke through his contemplation. "Whoa!" he shouted, nearly losing his balance as he stood to reel in his rod. He fought against the pull of the unseen fish beneath the water, grinning through the flurry of movement. Maybe today won't be a total loss after all. With Ellie cheering him on, it felt like they were no longer just fishing, they were navigating their way through the complexities of their lives together. The joy of the moment didn't just come from the act of fishing, but from the shared adventure and newfound honesty. What Mark once viewed as burdens now seemed like springboards for connection and growth. As the loose line finally lifted, a flash of movement caught his eye. But it wasn't the fish that snagged his attention, it was the potential future sprawled out before him, the lessons they would continue to learn together. Breathing in deeply, he anchored himself to this moment, resisting the urge to drift back to insecurities that had shadowed him before. Yet another layer of his fears lay just beneath this clear surface, waiting for exploration. But was he ready to dive deeper and reveal even more about himself? The line snapped back against his hand as he pulled once more, ready to let whatever lurked below break the surface. Mark's heart raced as the line tugged harder, sending adrenaline coursing through his veins. He fought against the water's resistance, feeling a surge of determination. This wasn't just about the fish, it was symbolic, a test of how far he had come in opening up, not only to Ellie but to the emotions he had long buried. Each pull mirrored a struggle to overcome the latent fears that clung to him. "Come on, Daddy. You can do it." Ellie squealed, her excitement infectious. He caught a glimpse of her wide, sparkling eyes among the dappled sunlight filtered through the trees, and he felt a knot of purpose tighten in his chest. This was how he wanted to elevate their relationship, buoyed by mutual encouragement, pushing through uncertainty together. With a final exertion of effort, Mark reeled in the line, revealing a flopping fish wriggling on the bank. Laughter bubbled from his lips, chasing away remnants of doubt. "Look at this beauty!" he exclaimed, holding it up for Ellie's awe. But as moments of triumph often do, this one quickly gave way to introspection. The euphoria faded, and Mark found himself staring at the fish with a tinge of melancholy. He had committed to change, he was trying to be the dad he wished his own father had been. Yet, the deeper question gnawed at him: would he ever be enough? Ellie's small hand slipped into his, pulling him back into the present. "Can we let it go?" she asked, her gaze soft and pleading. Mark hesitated, he had crossed this threshold of confidence and was about to retract it. "Why do you want to let it go?" "Because it's not ours to keep. It belongs back in the water, where it can be free." Her perspective struck him profoundly. He realized it encapsulated his own struggle, the need for freedom from his past to create a viable future for both of them. Maybe their healing was less about holding on to each fragment of their lives and more about letting go of what weighed them down. "Okay," he replied, placing the fish back in the river with gentle care. They watched as it swam off, splitting the surface with a joyful splash. "You're right. Sometimes, freeing others allows us to free ourselves." Ellie beamed up at him, and for the first time, he didn't feel the suffocating shadow of inadequacy. He began to realize that the act of vulnerability was a deep well of courage, not just an admission of guilt or fear, but a powerful option to set both of them on a path of self-discovery. Mark was everything he had feared he would never be: a father actively engaging in his child's life, willing to navigate their shared complexities. That boldness still flickered within him, waiting to be tapped into. He imagined countless moments ahead, based on trust and honesty, like this one. As they sat in contemplative silence, water glistening in the fading sun, recognition dawned on him: vulnerability was not a weakness, but a raw source of strength. This was a lesson he had long overlooked, and one he desperately needed to embrace fully if he were to become the man he wanted to be. "I think we need to keep doing this, Ellie," he said finally, breaking the stillness, his voice resolute. "Every now and then, let us come back here and talk about things that scare us." The agreement settled between them, creating invisible ties of trust. During this deliberation, Mark felt the once distant warmth of lasting connection blossom within him. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. But just as he began to bask in this sense of fulfillment, a crowded realization crept into his mind. The memories of his past, the ones he thought were behind him, lingered restlessly. They were far from forgotten and possibly on the verge of surfacing. Just as he was making progress, could the shadows of his history taint this growing bond with Ellie? The unsettling thought loomed large. Would the ghosts of his past break through and jeopardize this delicate equilibrium they had nurtured? Steeling himself against the impending storm, Mark felt that it was time to confront a few realities he had hoped to avoid. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he sensed another pivotal moment approaching, one where the shadows would demand to acknowledge their existence. Mark awoke the following morning, sunlight pouring through the window, illuminating the remnants of the previous day's revelations. He felt buoyed by the promise of shared experiences with Ellie. Their newfound understanding had invigorated him with the courage to face the lurking shadows of his past. But now, as he stirred to life, he could feel the weight of that lingering uncertainty pressing heavily on his chest. He made breakfast, Ellie's cheerful voice echoing like a melody in the background, but his thoughts kept drifting back to the conversation they'd started by the river. It was clear he needed to address his past before he could be fully present in the future. Once they finished their meal, he took a deep breath and approached Ellie, who was standing impatiently by the door. "Hey kiddo, you know how I said we'd go on an adventure today?" He began, noticing her eager nod. "I think I need to talk about something first, something important." Her face shifted to a blend of curiosity and concern. "Okay, Daddy. What is it?" Sitting down with her, he felt surreal, almost as if he was ready to step on stage for the most significant performance of his life. "I've been thinking a lot about our talk yesterday by the river." She tilted her head, her bright eyes fixated on him, clearly listening intently. He continued, letting the words gather strength. "You remember how I told you about making mistakes? Well, there's more I need to share." The mere act of expressing his fears felt liberating, yet terrifying. "It's not just that I was scared. When your mom and I separated, it changed our whole family dynamic. I had to confront some things about my past that I wasn't proud of." Ellie's brows knitted. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, pain curling around his heart, but he pressed on. "I didn't always handle my feelings well. Sometimes I would get angry or upset, feelings that made me act in ways that I regret. And I didn't want you to see that side of me." "Like what?" She prompted gently, her voice laced with naivety, yet earnest in its curiosity. Mark took a deep breath, preparing to reveal the vulnerable pieces that had haunted him. Like, after the divorce, I would shut myself off from my feelings instead of talking about them. It made me feel lonely, and I thought it would keep you safe. But the truth is, it might have pushed us apart. I needed to show you that it's okay to talk about scary things. Ellie absorbed his words quietly, her little face searching for understanding. So, you thought you could just be brave by not being scared? Exactly. But life taught me that being brave isn't about hiding from pain, it's about being honest, even when it's hard. But you're brave now, she said, her voice unwavering. Just like when we were by the river. A small smile broke through his emotional haze. I'm trying to be. And I want you to know that it's okay for us to talk about our feelings, good or bad. We can be scared together, and it can still be an adventure. Her nod was slow but firm, her young heart eager to absorb his complexities. In that moment, he realized that revealing his past wasn't just about addressing old wounds, it was about forging a transformational connection between them, one rooted in sincerity and shared vulnerability. Mark felt the heavy chains of guilt and fear begin to loosen, allowing him to breathe more freely. Will you help me? He asked gently, wanting her to feel the ownership of their journey. What do we do? She grinned, a lightness returning to the atmosphere. Let us make a promise, when we feel scared, we talk about it openly. Just like we did yesterday and today, he suggested, with mounting determination. Promise, she giggled, holding out her pinky. He laughed, intertwining his with hers as if they were sealing a magical pact. Just then, an unexpected surge of resilience dawned within Mark. Their hearts entwined with mutual commitment, he recognized that this commitment would require continuous courage not just in understanding vulnerability, but in confronting the shadows regularly, a resilient cycle of acknowledgement and growth. As they embarked down the path of shared experiences, he felt ready to dismantle the fears of judgment that had long occupied his thoughts. They had already planted the seeds of connection, now it was time to cultivate them. And so, their day turned from whispered fears to unbridled laughter. Each moment marked the evolution of their relationship into one built on emotional honesty and shared adventure, a father's commitment to embracing his imperfections, and a daughter's trust in his journey. Mark felt confidence and pride swell within him. He was no longer just a mechanic from a small town, he was a father determined to build a legacy of resilience and strength, not despite his past, but because of it. This evolution marked a profound milestone, bursting with the vibrant energy of transformation. Meanwhile, he sensed a momentous shift, his heart surged with a blend of fulfillment and courage. He had broken through the barriers that he thought were insurmountable, proving to himself that true accomplishment came from being intimately aware of who he was and embracing it, imperfections and all. Mark had not only taken steps towards healing, he had forged a deep-rooted understanding of growth through vulnerability, standing proudly as a father who accepted his past while carving out a beautiful future alongside his daughter. As they navigated uncharted territories together, he realized that this was just the beginning, a collaborative adventure destined to deepen their relationship time and again. They were destined for more than mere anecdotes of struggle, they were on a journey toward building a rich tapestry of shared experiences solidified in trust, empathy, and an unshakable bond. The sun dipped low in the clear blue sky, and with it resonated an invigorated sense of purpose. Mark felt proud not just of fishing for the first time without fear, but of unearthing his courage to embrace openness. He was finally the dad he needed to be, demonstrating that vulnerability leads to strength and connection, shaping their future while guiding Ellie through life's unpredictable waters. As they wound their way back home that evening, Mark was more than ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Having faced the shadows of his past, he emerged stronger, a living testament to the resilience that enveloped them. And as the last rays of sunlight disappeared, he recognized he was equipped with an unyielding resolve, a conscious commitment to a life built on honesty, learning, and an unwavering belief in the power of vulnerability. Now was the moment. This was merely the beginning of their grand adventure together. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, every bit truly makes a difference. Comment with your reactions and theories about this heartfelt conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative journey. You need to subscribe now, it's the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.